Let's make an ear warmer on my 48-pin Sentro. So I did 5 rows of waste yarn, 1 row of contrast yarn, and in this particular ear warmer, 90 rows of the green. Then I'm going to do 1 row of contrast yarn and 5 rows of waste yarn. And you're going to see why we do that contrast yarn. It will amaze you if you've ever had trouble getting your waste yarn off. So I count over an even number of stitches before I start to slip stitch them together, bottom to top, top to bottom, all the way across. Grabbing the top stitch, pulling it through the bottom stitch, grabbing the bottom stitch, pulling it through that middle. Keep going all the way to the end until you've grabbed all the stitches. Now I like to mark my beginning and last stitch of the round so that when I get to the end I don't drop any of those last stitches. I was doing that a lot before I started marking them, and that's helped me a great deal. You can see that contrasting white piece of yarn there. Here comes the magic. When you get to the end, you're going to pull that white piece of yarn out, and that's going to detach your waste yarn. So there's no more unraveling your waste yarn or worrying about it getting caught somewhere. None of that is going to happen. Just watch. Sorry I go off camera here a little bit. This is the first time I've used this overhead camera setup. Taking my stitch markers off so I can grab those last stitches. And we're going to make our knot. Here comes the magic. Pull up a loop on that waste yarn and then just hold on to it and yank. Now watch this. Zip. No more unraveling your waste yarn. Now we're going to do an X closure on this piece. Fold it in half, find your ends. Thread your yarn needle. Had a little frayed piece there, so I cut that off. Now we're going to line it up. And I find that 7 stitches seems to be my sweet spot for finding my center. So I line those all up and then I'm going to count those stitches and make sure I have about 7 right there. It helps me get the ends even. Now make sure you sew through all the layers. Catch the top loop of all those layers. You don't want to go down too deep because you'll see the stitches, but just catch the top. And I'm going to go across and then come back. When I come back, my stitches will be a little longer, but I go through each loop all the way across here, making sure that I catch every single layer. And sometimes you have to readjust a little bit to make sure you caught that layer. And just for good measure, I go back with some bigger stitches. All right, now you're going to turn your work and you're going to puff those little loops at the ends out, flatten them out, fold that center in, making kind of like a 4-layer sandwich. And we're going to sew through all 4 of those layers. I start in the center because my yarn is in the center. And go down one side, come back, go down the other side. Keep losing my yarn there. You really want to make sure you're catching all those layers. On my way back, I catch only the top loops of the first and last layer, just kind of tidy up the end, makes it look nice. Not necessary, but I like the look of it. I really prefer this X closure over that full close where you just have that scrunched up part in the middle. I think it looks cleaner and it fits a little nicer. It's a little less bulky to me. I'm going down to the end here again. And then I'm going to come back just catching those first and last layer, the top loops, to kind of tidy that up a little bit. Create your knot. I do 2 knots just to be safe. And then bury your piece of yarn in between your tube layers. Cut off your excess. Hide that little guy, which I like to bring back up through that seam, which gives it a little bit of security. And then hide it again in the tube. Turn it right side out, and there you have your X closure.